Welcome to the Pat White Show.
Well, today is February 20th in 2025, and today history was made because today the Senate, by a vote of 51 to 49, voted Kash Patel to be the next head of the FBI. That's a 10-year term, folks, and he's been nominated, and now he has been given the vote to be the next FBI director for 10 years. Now, why is that such a big deal? Well, this is one of the most hotly contested nominations and cabinet picks I think I've ever seen in my years of watching this stuff. It was brutal. And I mean, it was about as ugly as you could get. The Democrats did everything to try to destroy him, and the Republicans were there trying to prop him up. Kash Patel has got a lot of experience. He's been an attorney for a long time. He was a defense attorney. But he was also a prosecuting, well, he was an attorney for the bad guys necessarily, or someone that was charged with a crime. So he's been on both sides of the aisle. He's been for the defense, he's been for the plaintiff. Done both of that. He's worked with the administration for a long period of time. Now, he's been nominated, but there was a reason that the Dems were fighting against him so dramatically, in my opinion. Here's what I'm thinking. He said he's going to go in there and clean up the mess because right now the FBI is on about the lowest ebb that you could possibly be as far as what the American people thinks of the FBI. When I was growing up, I thought the FBI was one of the greatest things ever. I used to watch it on TV. Efren Zimbalist Jr., the FBI. You had a lot of pride in the FBI. Well, now 40% of America trust the FBI. 40%? That means 60% don't. FBI's got the worst image now going because it turned into a political wing of one particular party. And we all know whose that is. So, Kash Patel said, we got to clean this mess up. And top down, said the agents are some of the best of the best. But it's the top. It's the seventh floor, as they say. That's where they got dirty. And that's where the things happened, and the FBI did some things, probably the worst things that you could imagine. So, Kash Patel is now the head of the FBI. And what's he going to do? Well, let me tell you about what he could do. And let me point out one person for you, just for you to take a look at. It's good old Hakeem Jeffries. He's now the spokesperson for the Democrats. He's not the speaker, because the Democrats don't own the House. But let me tell you a little bit about Hakeem Jeffries. When Hakeem, before he was in Congress, his net worth was $26,000. Now, for the average person, that's pretty much how we are. You know, nobody's starting out big. Nobody's, in the high dollar end. So he starts before Congress as the net worth of $26,000. Been in Congress for a little bit of time now. His net worth is, you ready? Today, $21.9 million. 26,000 to 21.9. Man, how do you do that? I don't know. I can't tell you. But in 2024, here's some of his congressional expenses. He had $221,000 worth of travel. Okay, he's a congressman. He's got to go to a lot of places. I'll give him that. $116,000 for entertainment. I don't know where he's getting his entertainment. It must be pretty good entertainment. I don't spend that kind of money at all on entertainment. And obviously, that's $116K, and I don't have that kind of money. $51,000 for working meals. And he's eating at Ruth Chris a whole lot, apparently. And he's got $102,000 for gifts. Who do you give $102,000 worth of gifts? I don't know. And, of course, he's got a little petty cash walking around money, and that was $16,000. Well, if you think about it, does that qualify Hakeem Jeffries for referral to the Department of Justice? Pam Bondi, heading that up right now. She's a tough cookie. Trust me, she's tough. And you got Kash Patel in there as the head of the FBI. FBI, Kash, Pam Bondi, and Justice. I think, and this is my opinion, I think there's a lot of members of Congress that are worried they're going to be investigated. And corruption is going to be found, and it's probably going to be worse than anybody could possibly imagine. And once they turn over one, there's going to be a lot of people turned over because you go after me concept, I'll go after you concept. You tell on me, I'll tell on you. This may not be pretty in the coming weeks and months, but I believe Kash Patel is going to go in there and say, we got to root out the mess. And corruption? Hell, how can you go from $26,000 to $26,000 to $21.9 million? How do you do that? I think most of us would like to know, because he did it. What did he do to get there? There's an old saying, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Is this the case? It may that be with a number of congressmen and senators. Nobody's immune in Congress, folks. This could be ugly. Let's just see where it goes. But now you understand what's going on. Life ain't pretty in Washington, D.C. As a matter of fact, it's pretty ugly. And now it looks like we are draining the swamp. And how will it end up? Nobody knows. But I'll tell you what, it's going to be one heck of a ride. I'm sure there's a lot of you who are fans of music and going down to see concerts. Yes, we have concerts here in the city of Fort Wayne, and some pretty good ones, actually. But if you're a big fan of concerts, there's always going down to Noblesville to the Ruoff Music Center. That's a big place down there, and a lot of folks don't mind driving an hour and a half to get down there. But they have some great concerts, but some rules have changed this year if you're a fan of the Ruoff Music Center. Here's the biggest one. If you were a fan of the Lawn Pass program, well, that was in 2024. You might remember that. It was $239. Well, that whole program sold out last year. And guess what? Here's what Ruoff is doing this year. They're not going to have it. That's correct. No Lawn Pass program is this year. Now, Ruoff says, well, we're going to have something new, exciting, and fun. Trouble is, they haven't said what it is. So right now, nobody knows what it's going to be. But when you had that Lawn Pass, you got the fast lane entry gate. You had the personalized credentials for concerts and parking. All that good stuff you had before. Well, if you had the Lawn Pass, sorry, dudes, you ain't going to get it in 2025. And speaking of parking, parking is now going to be $20 in 2025. So get prepared to hand off one of those Jacksons out there to people, because that's what it's going to cost you to park. And speaking of parking, let's say you go down in a bigger vehicle. You get a bunch of friends together, get a big vehicle. Well, for a Premier, it's going to cost you $65. For a VIP vehicle, $125. And if you go down with an oversized car, that means a big car or a van, get ready, or a limo, big car, van, limo, those kind of things, $200. Park your vehicle. Yeah, that's what it's going to cost you down at Ruoff this year. And another thing people like to go and do than sitting on the lawn, they would take their own lawn chairs, like low-rise lawn chairs. But you sit on those, have a good time, think, oh, I'm comfortable, I'm relaxed, my back's going to be fine. No more taking lawn chairs. That at Ruoff is out in 2025, because you're going to have the honor of renting a lawn chair for a mere $15. So, just something to know about. Now, they're adding a lot more shows this year at Ruoff. Keith Urban, Dirk Bentley, Dave Matthews Band. Let's see who else they've got on the list here. Chris Stapleton, big guy right there. Jason Aldean, Luke Bryant. Oh, and Lainey Wilson. That's right. Lainey Wilson's going to be at what I call Deer Creek, Ruoff Music Center. Call it what you will. Big concerts coming up this summer, but it's going to cost you more shekels to get in. So if you're a fan of driving down there to see your concerts, get ready to open up your wallet, folks, because they're going to take more of that green stuff out of it and put it in theirs. Just something to know if you're a fan of concerts at Ruoff. I'm sure there's a lot of you who are fans of music and going down to see concerts. Yes, we have concerts here in the city of Fort Wayne, and some pretty good ones, actually. But if you're a big fan of concerts, there's always going down to Noblesville to the Ruoff Music Center. That's a big place down there, and a lot of folks don't mind driving an hour and a half to get down there. But they have some great concerts, but some rules have changed this year if you're a fan of the Ruoff Music Center. Here's the biggest one. If you were a fan of the Lawn Pass program, well, that was in 2024. You might remember that. It was $239. Well, that whole program sold out last year. And guess what? Here's what Ruoff is doing this year. They're not going to have it. That's correct. No Lawn Pass program is this year. Now, Ruoff says, well, we're going to have something new, exciting, and fun. Trouble is, they haven't said what it is. So right now, nobody knows what it's going to be. But when you had that Lawn Pass, you got the fast lane entry gate. You had the personalized credentials for concerts and parking. All that good stuff you had before. Well, if you had the Lawn Pass, sorry, dudes, you ain't going to get it in 2025. And speaking of parking, parking is now going to be $20 in 2025. So get prepared to hand off one of those Jacksons out there to people, because that's what it's going to cost you to park. And speaking of parking, let's say you go down in a bigger vehicle. You get a bunch of friends together, get a big vehicle. Well, for a Premier, it's going to cost you $65. For a VIP vehicle, $125. And if you go down with an oversized car, that means a big car or a van, get ready, or a limo, big car, van, limo, those kind of things, $200. Park your vehicle. Yeah, that's what it's going to cost you down at Ruoff this year. And another thing people like to go do and sitting on the lawn, they would take their own lawn chairs, like low-rise lawn chairs. But you sit on those, have a good time, think, oh, I'm comfortable, I'm relaxed, my back's going to be fine. No more taking lawn chairs. That at Ruoff is out in 2025, because you're going to have the honor of renting a lawn chair for a mere $15. So, just something to know about. Now, they're adding a lot more shows this year at Ruoff. Keith Urban, Dirk Bentley, Dave Matthews Band. Let's see who else they've got on the list here. Chris Stapleton, big guy right there. Jason Aldean, Luke Bryant. Oh, and Lainey Wilson. That's right. Lainey Wilson's going to be at what I call Deer Creek, Ruoff Music Center. Call it what you will. Big concerts coming up this summer, but it's going to cost you more shekels to get in. So if you're a fan of driving down there to see your concerts, get ready to open up your wallet, folks, because they're going to take more of that green stuff out of it and put it in theirs. Just something to know if you're a fan of concerts at Ruoff. I don't know if you've heard the name George Soros ever mentioned. Most of you probably know who that is. A foreign individual who has a ton of money, and he's spending it in the United States. Now, George Soros is about as far left as you could possibly get, and he has purchased some things or purchased some people that have created a lot of problems here in the United States. So, what has he done lately? Well, let me tell you about a company called Odyssey. Now, Odyssey was a company that owned a lot of radio stations, over 200 radio stations in the U.S. Trouble is, they bought everything they think they could get, and they couldn't pay the debt. And as a result of them being overextended on the note they had to pay, they end up going bankrupt. Well, in the bankruptcy, George Soros swooped in and paid $400 million. Now, what did he get? He got 220 radio stations in 40 markets that serve roughly 165 million people every single month. One of those stations was WWL in New Orleans, a 50,000-watt clear channel radio station, just like WOWO used to be until they were raided. Well, here's something you should know. On that particular network that George Soros bought features the likes of Sean Hannity's radio show, Mark Levin's radio show, and Glenn Beck's radio show. Now, since he's taking it over, and once he gets this into his hands, would he have a chance to eliminate Hannity, Levin, and Beck? Don't know, but here's something that's bothersome. The rules say that anybody who wants to get more than 25% of a radio broadcasting facility in the United States, that's the maximum they can hold, a foreigner. It's the maximum they can hold is 25%. Soros has got $400 million in, and obviously a lot more percentage. He went to the FCC, the Biden FCC, not the Trump FCC, the Biden FCC. And he said, I want you guys to look past this and give it to me right now. Let me have the ownership immediately. I don't want to do this foreign stuff. Let me have it right now. Bypass the rules. You know what the FCC did? By a vote of 3-2, 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans, by a vote of 3-2, they voted to give George Soros exactly what he wanted, and ownership of those 200 plus radio stations in the United States. Now, is that legit? I don't know about you, but that's violation of the 25% rule. I can tell you right now, it's exactly what happened. So, what are they going to do? Well, now the Trump department and the Justice Department and whoever else he wants to assign to it is taking a look at this deal and saying something doesn't smell right about this deal. Now, can he undo the deal? I don't know. Can he get the deal changed and say, Soros, sorry, you can't own that? I don't know. But I can tell you this, what was done is very, very bad. Having one person like that who has that control and power over the voices of conservative people like Hannity, Levin, and Glenn Beck, well, let's face it, folks. Do you want that to happen? Somebody, a foreigner, to control what you understand, what you hear, and what you listen to every day? No, you don't. And right now the law says that can't be done. Somehow the FCC under Joe Biden approved it. It never should have been done. And now it needs to be investigated and hopefully changed. Just something you didn't know, but now you do. I want to talk to you about something involving high school athletics and how it may be changing before your eyes, and frankly, whether you like it or not. For many, many years, there's been a rule, and it's in more than one state, happen to have it here in Indiana as well, that if someone's an athlete, they transfer from one school district to another, normally under the standard rules are they have to wait 1 year. So let's say a kid coming as a great player, he's a junior and he wants to go to another school that's, well, maybe a better athletic school or has a better program, or dare I say is recruited by a coach. It does happen, folks. Is recruited to another school to make their team even better. Now the rule says, well, you can't play for a year. So effectively, that kid is a junior going to another high school as a senior. He's not going to play because of the rule. Well, that's the problem. Now, if you remember back in the old days in colleges, and I'm going to go back to that because I remember those days, it used to be if you were a freshman and you came into college, you could not play in the freshman year. And that made a lot of great athletes coming out of high schools couldn't play until their sophomore year. That was the rule. But eventually that rule got changed. And kids could start playing as freshmen. And this affects a lot of schools. I do happen to know my particular school that I went to. We happened to win the NCAA basketball championship in 1966. You can look it up if you want. But one of the reasons we were able to do that is because there was a young kid by the name of Lou Alcindor. He had just entered UCLA, but he couldn't play. He was a freshman. And after his freshman year, he won about everything going on because he was the tallest kid in basketball back in those days. So that was the rule back then, but colleges changed that. Now you can play as a freshman. You see it all the time. Well, now the Indiana is looking at through the IHSAA is to eliminate that rule. And the reason they're eliminating that rule is because, well, government is threatening to do it for them. There's a bill in the House of Representatives down in Indianapolis, HB number 1067. It's introduced by State Representative Corey Criswell from Middletown, Indiana. And essentially what it does, it eliminates the language from the Indiana Code about transferring students. Now, you're going to say, wait a minute. We can have students transfer all over the place, go from one school to another school. Kids do transfer. They're not happy with the education, their parents aren't happy, hey, they can move them to another school. That happens a lot nowadays. People are going from regular public schools into charter schools. That does happen. That's a way of life. Just understand it. But you're worried about, and what people are concerned about is, well, certain coaches are going to say, boy, I want that kid. I'm going to get that kid from that team. I'm going to convince his parents to move to my district or come to my district so that kid could play on my team and not be restricted by a 1-year sit down. Well, the state of Indiana is looking about changing that law and saying you can't do that. Now, would that be the end of athletics as we know it in the state of Indiana? Some would argue yes. Some would say no. But right now, if you take a look at colleges going on with the portal rule, where a kid can play for one college 1 year and transfer to another college the next year, and another college the next year after that, whatever he wants. Has that destroyed football? Well, some of you would say yes. And you might be right. But fair is fair. The colleges are doing it, and you're going to see it in the high schools. It's coming, folks. Whether the law gets passed or the rule gets changed by the IHSAA, eventually that rule will be terminated and people will play where they want to play. It's ugly, and it's going to be used, unfortunately, in the worst way, but it is going to happen. Just my thoughts on it, and let's see what happens. There has been much talk and discussion about what Mr. Musk has done with his musketeers, as we call them. I call them the swamp fox. What he's done to get rid of waste, fraud, and corruption in government. Well, here's one thing that hasn't been talked about. It's the Federal Communications Commission, or we call it the FCC, Friendly Candy Company. Now, back in 2023, Congress passed a law. It was called the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. And what it was designed to do, among other things, was to provide high-speed internet service to rural areas of the United States that frankly don't have internet service or not much of anything. It was modeled after what FDR did in 1936 when he brought the Rural Electrification Act. And that provided electricity to everybody out in the hinders, out in the yonder area. Everybody had electricity. FDR did that in 1936. So the Biden administration said, yeah, we're going to give everybody high-speed internet service, and we're going to have it to them by the year 2030. Now, this was back in 2023. Congress gave $42.5 billion. You heard me right. $42.5 billion to install internet to everywhere around the United States that doesn't have it. All right, now you're saying here it is 2025. How many people got the internet service? None. Zero bupkis, no one. All talk, no action, no one outside the area that has internet is getting it. So those rural areas, like they got electricity back in the 30s, they ain't getting internet, not one person. So here's the question. What happened to that $42.5 billion? Well, here's the problem. The Biden administration told every state, look, you want internet for your rural areas, here's the rules you have to follow. They created a whole set of rules that were so Byzantine that states are going, we can't do this, because they were putting in requirements that were never anywhere in the act, but because of non-elected bureaucrats said, well, let's put this regulation in, let's put that regulation in, let's add these things in. The states have to jump through certain hoops to get the money to do it. Turns out the states are going, ain't going to do that, can't do that. So, where's the $42.5 billion? It hasn't been spent because not one person has gotten internet from it. Can it change? Maybe. Will it change? Well, possibly. So let's see what happens with this administration if they can take that 42.5, cut out on some of that red tape and mess that's in there that stopped the states, and let them do it so everybody can get internet service, high-speed internet service. Maybe it's like, well, Roosevelt did in 36, getting people electricity. Let's get them high-speed internet service. Make them smarter, make them better, and make them more knowledgeable so they don't have to rely on the legendary media to let them know what's going on in the world. They can find out for themselves if they have the internet and a chance to see what else is going on in the real world. Just something I thought I'd bring up to you. Now, something you didn't know, all the money that was supposed to be spent, nothing has been done. And that's thanks to the Biden administration and, the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, who wants to be your next president. Chances are you probably heard about that terrible airline crash that happened in Toronto at Pearson International Airport. It was a Delta flight that had left Minneapolis-St. Paul for a short jaunt over to Toronto. Now, here's the deal, and here's my personal opinion on what occurred. I just recently saw the video of the plane landing. I don't know who took the video, whether it was a passenger or a crew member from another aircraft. Watched the plane come in, and I said, you know what? That plane is coming in a little bit hot. And as it came in, it came down in a very, very quick way, very quick loss of altitude, and it slammed into the runway. And when I was thinking when it landed into the runway, I said, must be a Navy pilot flying that aircraft, because that's kind of the way Navy lands aircrafts on aircraft carriers. It's not a slight glide in and barely touch down and kiss the deck. It's you slam into it. And that's the way Navy planes are designed to handle those type of landings. They come down and they just come down, bam, hit the runway and stop. Airliners, that gear is going to, if you try to hit that thing really hard, it's going to come down and it's going to prang back. And it's go up, which is exactly what I think it did. And when it bounced back up in the air, sort of like bouncing off a trampoline, the wind caught it, turned the wing a little bit, turned the aircraft around, and one wing hit the ground and left the aircraft. So it was torn off the aircraft. There was lift on the other wing, and that caused it to turn up and turn over. Now that's my guess. NTSB will figure out exactly what caused that, but that's my guess right now as someone who's been flying for a lot of years. I'm guessing it was a Navy praying landing. It bounced on him, the wind caught it, ripped off one wing, the airfoil the other wing, had enough lift to it, flipped the aircraft over, and there it came. Fortunately, everybody survived. Yes, there were injuries, some fairly serious. But I can tell you this, that plane was lucky. But I do know this in my own flying career, if you land that hard down and you're not your aircraft is not designed for that kind of landing, like Navy planes are designed to do that on carriers, because that's the way they land. Airlines don't work that way. You got to come down soft and gentle, but I can understand the wind was pretty strong. Pilot was trying to cut through the wind, get it on the deck as quickly as he could, and without having to float it around in the air in a heavy wind. Those things can happen. It's unfortunate, but I believe that's what occurred. That will be up to the NTSB and the Canadian authorities to decide how it happened, as well as the instruments in the aircraft. Just one person's opinion, but that's the way I see it. And we will see how, well, everything works out. Well, the Department of Governmental Efficiency has been out doing its job again, and they're probably going to catch some more heat, because they found some money in places that you're going, really? They found some more money there? Turns out the EPA administrator, a guy by the name of Lee Zeldin, has discovered $20 billion, I'm saying $20 billion taxpayer-funded money laundering scheme. Now, folks, money laundering is flat out illegal, but that's what he discovered. Apparently, the EPA secretly parked money in an outside financial institution. So the EPA gets money, puts it in another financial institution away from government, and then hands it out to other people to give it away to other people. Money laundering, money laundering, money laundering. One group got $7 billion of this $20 billion, called the Climate United Fund, and I have no idea who that is. But it's going to far-left activist groups, according to Administrator Lee Zeldin. So what they have done is they've terminated the agreements on this, clawed the money back, and that has now been taken over and sent to the Inspector General's office and to the Department of Justice. That's right, because this was illegal, but there's more. I have more for you, because now they have found another $1.9 billion in HUD money, and it was also misplaced, all right? Misplaced, put somewhere else where it shouldn't be, and so they said, hey, we're clawing this one back too. Here's the problem. It was earmarked for Administration for Financial Services. People are going, what? Administration for what financial services? You put it under some obscure account, and you can pretty well get away with it. So, the people over at HUD have worked together on this and clawed the money back and told the folks where the money was scheduled to go to, sorry, you ain't seeing a dime. So that's where we are, folks. There's people complaining about what Elon Musk and his musketeers and he is the swamp fox is doing to reclaim all this money. But you know what? Why should anybody be complaining? I mean, if someone came into your family and was stealing money out of your checking account and putting it in places you didn't even know about, wouldn't you want to know about it? Taxpayers should know what's going on with their money. And if they can funnel it out and give it away to people and hide it and give it to NGOs, are we really being overtaxed? I mean, isn't that something you want to be asking yourself? Where is the money going? What are they doing with all this stuff we're giving them? Or maybe we're giving them too much. So maybe, just maybe, they ought to think about giving it back to us. Because we're the ones putting it in and they're the ones shelling it out to every place you can think of. And now we're seeing money laundering. This, folks, is what's going on in your government. And whether anybody likes it or not, I'm glad somebody came out and started to clean out and drain the swamp. This swamp is bigger and uglier and nastier than anything I could have ever imagined. So many people on the take. And the problem is there's so many people yelling and screaming not to investigate. Why? Is it possible that maybe they were involved themselves? Just saying. That's just my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. So now you know. Money's been found, and money's been reclaimed. And that's how the game is being played. And let's see how it continues to play. Well, recently on Facebook, I ran across a posting that was done by a friend of mine by the name of Bud Brenneman. I've known Bud since the 1980s, I guess it was, when we were younger. And Bud now is retired, lives in Florida at the Life of Riley, so it's great for him. But he had his own record thing, and he did his own DJ and stuff at parties and what have you. And pretty good guy. But he posted this thing called "This Is How I Grew Up," and I want you to take a look at this because it's from the 1946 to 1964 generation. Now that was called the baby boomers. Those are the people that were born after World War II because their parents came back after World War II and had a monstrous number of kids, and that was a huge segment of society, which is starting to disappear now because obviously we're getting old. But things from our era that I want to talk about, and here's some of the things that we're talking about. Wooden baseball bats. Today everybody's using those big aluminum bats or what metal bats they're using. In the old days we had baseball bats, and you got a baseball bat, a wooden bat from your favorite player. Mine back in that era was a guy named Eddie Matthews on the Milwaukee Braves. Just goes to show you, Milwaukee Braves are now in Atlanta. But you got your favorite player, you got their bat. And then there was magnifying glass to burn ants. You didn't do that very often, but you suddenly realized the power of the sun. You could concentrate a beam of light, and you could kill something. Well, that made me think about it. Ends up the sun is a lot more powerful than any people think. And today, even I happen to believe the sun controls everything, including the weather we're having. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. There's other scientists a lot smarter than me who happen to also agree. Grocery bags used as book covers. Heck, I remember when they said, hey, you got to get rid of paper bags, so we're killing all the trees, we got to go to plastic. Now we got plastic that's messing up the ocean and everything else you can think about it. So paper book covers, that's what we had back in those days, and you would write stuff on them so you knew what book it was. Wasn't a bad deal, and actually it was a personally good deal because you can't cover your books in plastic. Steel wheel roller skates. Yeah, I had those. Everybody had those. And you had a skate key that went with it. You had to tighten things down with it. And hence the song, I got a brand new pair of roller skates and you got a brand new key. Became very popular for a reason everybody knew about. Banana seat bicycles, well, I didn't have one of those because I couldn't afford one of those things back in those days. But I do remember something. McDonald's had a 29-cent hamburger and a 19-cent French fry. What I didn't realize was I liked McDonald's French fries. I still do today. But what I didn't know until Bobby Kennedy came along, Robert F. Kennedy, RFK Jr., there's 19 ingredients used to make a McDonald's French fry. How come in Europe they make the same French fry with 4 ingredients? Someone explain that one to me. That one bothers me a whole bunch. And the street light, come home lights. And when the street lights came on back in those days, you came home because your parents had come to get you if you didn't. And then Kmart was our mall back in those days. which goes to show you that was the advent of before malls. Kmart was the place that we went to. But malls eventually came along. They were a great thing. Everybody went there, but ultimately they're starting to lose their favor now. People want to go back to regular stores. And finally, Walter Cronkite was our news. Walter Cronkite believed in one thing: the concept of who, what, where, when, why, and how. That was Walter Cronkite in the news, not the O for opinion. Walter Cronkite told you the story, let you decide whether you liked it or not. The only time I ever saw Walter Cronkite put an opinion on there was in one day. One day on TV, he talked about the Vietnam War. He did not like what he saw. He said, this is not a good war. It's not a good plan. After that, LBJ decided not to run against because Walter had turned on him. That's history, folks. That's what happened. That's one of the reasons the Vietnam War started to wind down, because Walter said, this ain't worth it. So those are things that we baby boomers learned from 1946 to 1964. Yes, I'm one of those, and I'm proud of that. I've seen things and done things that many of you never have. And hopefully I can pass some of that along to you folks out there. You may not agree with everything that I happen to agree with, but I've been there, I've done that, and I've seen that. Maybe it's time for most people to start thinking about those things before they go, well, running off. Just my opinion, and that's what I've got to say. In recent days, there's been a lot of talk about people, really old people, being paid Social Security. And because the numbers, well, don't look very good, folks, but here's something you have to understand. Apparently, yes, there are a number of names on the Social Security roster that are really old, that the file doesn't say they're dead. And now they're finding those out and see how many people those are. But according to the Social Security Administration, what they do is anybody who's more than 115 years old, according to their log, they don't pay to. Now, under 115, it's possible. How many improper payments were made by Social Security last year? Try $71.8 billion. Now, I don't care who you are, that's a lot of money. And if they could give that money back to people that shouldn't be getting Social Security, that would be a good thing. Now, I know when somebody dies, funeral homes send in a special form up to the Social Security people to say, hey, so-and-so has passed away, and they don't get their Social Security check anymore. Well, that's all well and good, but you got to remember there's two agencies involved with this. One is the Social Security Administration. They're the people that keep the records. And there's a thing called the Full Death Master File. Well, that file contains 142 million names dating clear back to 1899. That's a big, giant file. Well, a lot of stuff is in there. And when Social Security gets a name, they put it in, so this person has died. The problem is Social Security doesn't issue the payment. Payments are issued by the Treasury Department. So you got two groups here. One group getting the info in, the other group's paying. They both got to be on the same page, and apparently sometimes they're not. Are there people scamming the Social Security? Yes, there probably are. And it could be more than you think. But right now, the problem is in the Social Security Administration, they are using software called COBOL. It's a COBOL program language. It's old, it's outdated, it's, antiquated for lack of a better term. And they could have purchased a new software update and got the new software, made it better, faster, quicker. But they said it cost $9 million, and they didn't want to spend $9 million. In Washington, D.C., $9 million you can find at a congressman's couch. They could have got the new software and enhanced their programming ability. But right now they're using old software, so I'm just telling you what's going on. So, here's the problem. Let's see how much is being waste, fraud, and abuse. Let's see how many people are scamming the system. And let's see if we can claw back some of that $71.8 billion of improper payments. If we can do that and save some money, I'm all for it. Right now, it's not thousands of people getting paid. No, probably not. But there's a lot of bad programming go out there, and the people responsible for that either need to be replaced or the software that does it needs to be replaced as well. One man's opinion, and that's mine. That's the way I see it, and you choose for yourself what you think. If you're one of those people that shops at a grocery store, and probably most of you do, you know what's going on with the price of eggs. Price of eggs keep going up and up and up. They said in 2025 they thought the price of eggs would rise 20%. Well, I'm here to tell you I think it's going to be more than that. Originally I thought that might be the way it was, but really, it ain't working out too well, folks. Stores like Costco and Whole Foods and a whole bunch of other stores are now putting absolute restrictions on buying eggs. They're saying, okay, you can buy 1 dozen. And I can tell you right now that if you've been to the local grocery store, my wife happened to be in the Kroger store, because that's where we tend to shop, and she said she went to the egg section and virtually it was empty. There was nothing there. Now, apparently there's some people believe that they should hoard eggs. If you think eggs are going to last forever, you're wrong. Eggs will eventually go bad, and it depends on a number of factors when that happens. What you don't want to eat is a bad egg. So people hoarding eggs, thinking, well, I'm going to save these for 3 or 4 months. You're stupid, because eggs will not last that long. They're a commodity that has a shelf life, and that shelf life is not as long as you might think. But stores are starting to put the kibosh on people buying lots of eggs. And don't be surprised if you might see eventually someday, depending on how long this avian flu mess goes on, that you may see some stores that'll put their eggs under lock and key. It's sort of like the things you see at the drugstore in certain cities where they put virtually everything the drugstore sells under lock and key because of the theft problem that exists in those particular markets. So don't be surprised if you see a lock on the egg aisle, and you're going to have to call somebody and get them to come in to hand you a carton of eggs, because that's all you're going to get. That may be coming, folks, if people get that stupid about hoarding and buying everything they can. Now you hear about cases where someone is stealing tractor trailers full of eggs. What, are you going to see some guy standing on the corner holding up a big trench coat saying, hey, lady, you want to buy a dozen eggs? It's stupid. Yes, you use eggs in everything, and I understand that. But the flu is a problem, and the government says if you get 1 case in your flock, you have to kill your entire flock. Is that necessary? I don't know. I'm not an immunologist. I'm not a veterinarian. I don't know that stuff. Does seem a little bit harsh, but maybe that's the way it works. And someone said, well, how does this happen? How do birds get this? It comes from bird droppings of other birds. And they go and they do their business, and chickens go around pecking around on the ground pecking for food, and that's where they pick up the virus. Now, normally in an inside facility, you shouldn't get that because the chickens aren't outside. And I don't know how it gets inside to the chicken coops that are closed up. I don't know. But I do know this. Price of eggs are going to continue to go up because it's going to take a long time to raise new fresh chicks and start them laying eggs. Usually that could be 6, 8, months, a year. Who knows? Right now it's a mess. But for you people out there thinking I'm going to go buy every egg at a store and I'm going to hold on to it for months, you're being stupid. Eggs have a commodity life, and it ain't that long. Buy your dozen and get the heck out. Save the rest for others. Because it may come to the point you're going to see eggs locked in glass cases with locks on them. Not a good plan. Just something to think about. Well, here's a story you probably haven't heard about because, well, there's not a lot of talk going on about it. But believe it or not, there are some counties in certain states and certain blue states that the counties are, well, red. And they don't want to be part of that particular state anymore. Let me give you a perfect example of one of the states. Oregon. That's right, Oregon is definitely a blue state. We all know that. But 11 counties in eastern Oregon, 11 counties, another one's getting ready to vote, have already voted to say, we want no part of Oregon anymore. We want to move to Idaho. That's correct. 11 counties in eastern Oregon have already said, we want to join the state of Idaho. And, well, could it happen? Frankly, yes. But will it happen? Well, that's a good question. Because here's the thing. You can have boundaries can change, and they do, but the only way you can have these kind of things happen is one, you can actually start a new state, and I don't think that's going to happen. They're trying to do that in Washington, D.C., and, well, we know how that's going to work out. Two, you could secede, and, well, that's kind of happened a long time ago, but didn't work out real well. And three, well, you can join another state, move the boundaries. And that's exactly what the people in eastern Oregon are saying to their government. We want out. We want to move to Idaho. Now, both states would have to agree with that. And there's the rub right there. Both states would have to agree. And would Oregon want to lose half the state? Well, they might. Just might happen. Now, has this happened before? Well, back in 1863, a part of Virginia, West Virginia, actually voted to secede from Virginia, and did in 1863, and formed West Virginia. But now, well, these states are saying, hey, part of the state doesn't want any part to do with the other part of the state. Conservative, liberal, well, it's changing things around. However, it's happening in other states as well. Believe it or not, there are counties in southern Illinois, both on the east side and the west side, that want nothing to do with Springfield or Chicago politics. They're saying, hey, we want to go to another state. On the east side, there are counties that want to join Indiana, be part of the Hoosier state. And on the west side, there's counties that want to go into Iowa and become Hawkeyes. Will all of this happen? Will the state legislatures of either state or both states vote to allow that to happen? It's a very good question, folks. One, frankly, I would doubt a little bit. But imagine that. States are trying to say, or counties and states are saying, look, we don't like what's going on in the other population of the state. We want to go to another state and be part of them. It's unusual. It's new. But that's what's going on. In case you haven't heard about it, it is happening. Will it change America? We don't know. But right now, you know what's going on.